Mr. Speaker, members, let me ask you to do something for me, members. Let me ask you to take a look inside and put a face on this House bill. Take a look at the students in your district and put a face on this House bill. There's a new accountability system in this bill. There's a accountability system related to academic performance, financial performance, and community and student engagement. This amendment has to do with academic performance. And let me tell you why. In 1986, we created what was called teams. In 1990, we created something called TASK. In 2003, we created TACS. And in 2007, we did the VOCs, the end of course exams. Now, I've been through multiple omnibus education bills since I've been in this legislature, all designed to improve student performance. But let me tell you the real deal. What we have done, members, is every session we come to improve education, we raise the ceiling. Excuse me. We raise the ceiling, and we keep raising the ceiling. And we never, ever, out of all of these things that we've done, tried to do anything to touch the floor of public education in this state. Now, let me some of you probably know this, and some of you probably know it and don't care, but let me talk to the ones who know it and recognize that we need to do something about it. This amendment says that the academic performance accountability standard will be based solely on the progress of African American males on that campus and in that school district. Now you might ask why? Why do we do that? Well, the reality is this, there are 150 some odd thousand people in Texas prisons, folks. 50,508 of them are black males. Almost better than a third of them. And yet they represent only about 10 to 12% of the total population of the student population. On parole, there are 33,435 black African American males on parole. In the county jail, we have over 64,000 people in Texas. I don't know how many of them are African American males, but just based on what I see as a lawyer, I can tell you that probably more than 50% of them happen to be African American males. What do they all have in common? What's the one thing they all have in common other than their race? You know what that one thing in common is? The TEAMS test didn't help them. The TASK test didn't help them. The TACS test didn't help them. The the end of course exams didn't help them. And the reality is that House Bill 5 is not going to help them either, unless we do something about it. And what we can do today about it is this. We can force school districts to do something about it. And the way we force school districts to do something about it is we adopt this amendment. Because what this amendment says is that your academic performance is going to be based solely on the progress of African American males. Now, I don't have to tell you, we can choose to do nothing. We can pass House Bill 5 and go home and recognize that the person, when I asked you to take a look inside yourself and look at and put a face on House Bill 5, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but how many of you could raise your hand truthfully and say, I thought of a black male in my district? I see one hand, two hands, and maybe we got some people converted out there, but I'll leave that up to them and their conscience as to whether or not that's really what they felt. Because I doubt seriously whether anybody in here, with the exception of maybe two or three of us, thought about the fact that, wait a minute, how does House Bill 5 help the people and the students who are at the bottom rung of the education ladder? How does it do that? I wish I knew. I've supported House Bill 5. I've supported Jimmy Don because I think House Bill 5 is the right thing to do. I think this amendment makes House Bill 5 probably the most revolutionary piece of legislation we could pass regarding education in this state. As I was coming in, one of the education lobbyists stopped me and said, Harold, your amendment was the most creative we saw. I said, well, I hope it's just not the creation part, the creativeness that you saw in it. I hope you saw some other things. And as they turned and walked away and they said under their breath, yeah, we'd have to educate them then, wouldn't we? Well, let me tell you something, folks. We're either going to educate them or we're going to incarcerate them. The choice is the legislature's. And I'm begging you that, wait a minute. It's time for us as the legislature to say, look, we can raise the ceiling all day long. We can require you to take Algebra 2. But I'm talking about some people who didn't get past general math. I'm talking about some people who dropped out not in the 11th grade, not in the 12th grade, but in the 3rd grade. Because that's when they dropped out. They dropped out because nobody decided to teach them to read. Nobody decided to teach them mathematics, to teach them to add and subtract and divide and multiply. Nobody decided it. But somehow or another they rocked along until somebody decided that, wait a minute, we came up with Chapter 37, and I was part of that whole debacle, is what I call it now. And so we finally figured out a way to make African American males first, because they happened to be first when it came to discipline. And every standard that we have used to measure success has largely left them untouched. And so that's why I offer this amendment today, members. I think this amendment would help Texas become a state that's not only proud of its educational system, but will force people who are supposed to be teaching every student in this state, will force them to teach them. And when we talk about statistics like prisons and parole and probation, we won't have to talk about it in terms of race, because race won't be a part of it. But the reality is, folks, when it comes to educating children in this state, race has played too big a part.